Hi, this is Jeff Blowett, technical agronomist with Cooperative Farmers Elevator. And on this week's Field Friday segment, we've rehashed this a few times in previous years, but it's that time again. I wanted to show out that we've got Gossa's wilt showing up in the corn again. And, we've been really dry most of the summer, and then recently we started to get some rains. It's cooled off a little bit, and we've had some dewy mornings. And that started to show up in the fields a little bit because that's kind of a better environment for Gossa's wilt to show up and to spread. We get these dewy, really, extended periods of, leaves being wet. That allows the bacteria that causes Gossa's wilt to spread, and we can see it happening now. I mentioned it's a bacteria, we've talked about before, but our fungicides that we apply aren't effective on bacteria. They're after more of a fungal pathogen, so bacteria is not something we're going to help with a fungicide necessarily. So just keep that in mind. We may have no other diseases but Gossa's wilt out in the field, and a fungicide really isn't going to help with that. So what's a Gossa's wilt look like? We've got a few leaves here that kind of show we're browning. If we actually look at these leaves, the picture we got shows that brown area is the damaged tissue that's been damaged for a little while. And then to the edges of those, you can kind of tell when Gossa's wilt is still spreading in that leaf. That area around the brown is kind of got that water soaked, that darker look to it, that the tissue's damaged, you can kind of tell, but it hasn't turned brown yet. That tells you if it's going to continue to spread. Some hybrids have a lot better tolerance than others. Every hybrid can get Gossa's wilt regardless, but I think the hybrids that are better at fighting it off, if there's a lesion that starts, it kind of stops in its tracks a lot quicker than hybrids that are more susceptible, and those will kind of turn a lot more brown, get a lot more lesion, a lot more damaged areas. So a lot of times what we'll see, I don't know if you can see it from there, but kind of this damage area started around a hail damage slit. Any leaf damage, whether it's insects chewing on some, we've had some grasshoppers around, some corn rootworm beetles chewing on some leaves, opening up that leaf surface for some damage potential, or even just some wind damage where those leaves kind of get slivered up. Those are entry points for that bacterial Gossa's wilt. Typically, it seems like we'll have pockets in the field. It's pretty rare that it's uniform. You'll be walking along between rows, and you'll get into a hot spot where it seems like every plant has some, and then you'll walk out of that pocket and you'll find an area where there isn't any. You can kind of see that maybe behind me a little bit. I don't know how well you can see that, but there is a pocket behind me where every plant, the upper half of the plant, has some brown leaves. So that's just something that we see with that disease, and most diseases, they're in more pockets. They're not very often uniform in a field. So essentially, what's that do to our corn crop at this stage? We're just starting to dent in a lot of fields. Essentially, with any disease, whether it's Gossa's wilt or any leaf disease, these leaves are solar panels. And anything that we do that disrupts their efficiency has the potential to damage yield. We're basically making these solar panels less effective by half of the leaf, or a third of the leaf, or 20% of the leaf being brown and basically not photosynthesizing anymore. So that's basically the impact is, are we photosynthesizing at enough capacity to fill all the kernels we pollinated or not? So that's kind of what we're looking for, and it may not have much of a yield impact if we don't have a lot of lesions. A lot of times we have more leaf area than we really need, but it just all depends on other stress loads as well. But I thought we'd touch on it again. I know as you drive around the country, you start to see, a lot of times you'll see it on the outer edges. You'll see little 10 or 15 foot stretches on the outside couple rows along the road that are turning brown. Again, those outer leaves on those outer rows get beat up more with wind, and they probably are more susceptible for whatever reason than even within the field. We also have seen a little bit where the 20-inch row corn is a little bit more susceptible to spreading that disease around. Those pockets tend to be bigger, and you'll see Gossa's wilt there quicker. I think if you ever walk through a cornfield, these leaves are sharp. They kind of almost are abrasive to your skin as you're running through the field. I think with 20-inch corn you have more plants and more leaves rubbing up against each other and might, over time create some more openings for infection, but nothing drastic. But we will see it in 20-inch corn quicker than 30-inch corn historically. But just thought I'd touch on that. That's something we're starting to see in the fields be more prevalent. Other diseases have been pretty minimal yet. I kind of expect we may see with some of this little bit of cooler weather and damp weather we've been through, it's been good for the corn, but it's probably also been good for northern corn leaf blight. I haven't seen any really to any consequence yet, but that could be coming, but we'll see. So with that, that's this week's Field Friday segment, and we'll see you next week.